All right. Hello, everyone. Coming at you from day one of GaryCon 2023. Very exciting
Excellent.
to be here. I'm Will from WizKids. I'm sitting here with Joe,
Also from
also from
WizKids.
WizKids. And we, like we said, are so excited to be here talking about Dungeons & Dragons Onslaught, which is on the table in front of us here. And we're going to dive into it in a second, but there's so much to tell you about. We want to talk about the minis. We want to talk about the cards, how the game plays, the specific scenario we have set up. But before we get into any of that, I just want to say I'm so happy to be here with you because you're terrible at this game, and if we did have time to play a full round, I'd be so confident in my
No, no,
victory.
no, no. Don't sell me
Um,
short. This is my go-to scenario. I've got you right where I want you.
okay,
But I think, Will, before we dive into the gameplay,
yeah,
I think we just need a general overview of what we're working with. Will, what is Dungeons & Dragons Onslaught?
I'm so glad you asked. You know just where to start. So D&D Onslaught is, like I said, a brand new tactical skirmish game set in the Forgotten Realms of D&D.
Hmm.
It's very much inspired by D&D combat, but we kind of have our own take on it here. You can see we have a board set up in front of us with some minis. We have our adventuring parties on the left and the right. We have some monster miniatures, including a nasty-looking troll seated atop that throne in the center. We have some chests and some loot. And basically, this is one of the scenarios included in the core set. I'll bring out the box.
Ooh, the big
You can
box.
see this
Everyone
this
likes
beautiful
holding the
cover here.
box.
I love the graphic design that our team did with this. It has
It's
a
beautiful.
really unique look, blood spattered. um, and so what we have here are the Harpers and the Zentarum squaring off in scenario 3,
Okay.
which is all about loot. And I know you love loot.
Will, you mentioned that it's sort of a take from Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition combat. So does that
Yeah.
mean that I'll sort of recognize some of the components?
You will.
Is there a lot of new stuff?
Yes, absolutely. So of course you'll be right at home with the minis if you're familiar with WizKids minis, WizKids D&D minis, which we have a beautiful selection of here. But of course there's there's so much. This thing is drenched in D&D flavor and all the skills and spells and abilities that you know how to wield. So for instance, my barbarian here, which I control using this handy character card, has reckless attack and rage and opportunity
Okay,
attack.
so terms, keywords
Concepts.
that I would kind
Yeah.
of be familiar with already.
Yeah. So,
Sure.
but because it's not exactly D&D, we were able to have a little bit of fun with sort of streamlining the game, tweaking it towards just fast, frantic combat. Get right into it.
Excellent.
Cast some spells, roll some dice. In your case, maybe roll some nat ones.
yeah, you hope.
Yeah.
So, so I'm getting into initiative rounds of combat. I'm getting right to the action, right? Are there any, narrative elements or story elements that I'm paying attention to?
Yeah,
Or is it
so-
just focus on that combat aspect?
So what you have in the core set, which we just showed the box, is 21 pre-painted miniatures, and these are all new sculpts.
That's a lot of
that,
miniatures.
that are only found in this Onslaught core
I
set.
think I just want to make sure I heard you right. 21 pre-painted miniatures
21 pre-painted miniatures
from the core box.
That's correct.
That's
And that
awesome.
includes 6 player character miniatures, 6 for each faction.
Okay.
So 12 total, as well as 9 monsters, including, and we'll take a closer look at these in a second,
we
but a
have
troll, an Etten,
We
a
have
young
to.
black dragon. But then you also get this scenario guide, and you're asking about sort of how the narrative plays
Yeah.
out. And what you get here in the back are 3 sort of deathmatch, capture the flag, control point, roughly modes
Sure.
that are very replayable, good for competitive play, etc. You also get 7 scenarios that sort of tell a little bit of a loose story. There's a little bit of carryover between them,
Okay.
but designed to kind of ramp you up, and by the end you are tangoing with that young black dragon.
So it sort of sounds like, if I were to sum all that up, it's like a player versus environment,
Yes.
tactical miniatures battle game where you're sort of like fighting each other, but there's also some objectives where you can score points on. There's monsters to worry about. It looks like maybe some treasure to collect. A few things going on.
Yes, yeah. So, certainly anyone who's familiar with tactical skirmish combat games is going to feel right at home, but
Okay.
there are a few unique things, and we've kind of touched on those already. Of course, you have the D&D flavor, the
Right.
D&D theme, and this beautiful kind of isometric board here that's not too crowded with It's readable, but it still feels very much like a dungeon.
Absolutely.
But of course, like you said, you got monsters all over the board. You got monsters that are strong enough to wipe a party.
Just take you out at once.
Exactly.
Which kind of has me interested. We're talking about these parties here. On the board, we can see are 2 different factions ready to deploy inside this dungeon, inside the scenario. But I'm wondering how I interact with them from me to them on the board. And we were taking a look at these character cards, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And there seems to be a specific one for each character. And I see we've got monks, we've got warlocks, we've got paladins, sorcerers, clerics. Who do you have over here?
Barbarian, druid, ranger, bard, of course.
Of course.
Buffing up my party.
So,
Fighter.
Pretty flexible, balanced parties that would
Yeah.
be familiar if you were playing like a full game of Dungeons & Dragons, but summed up for you here. And what I really like is that this character card feels like a almost living character sheet. It stipulates your actions, your bonus actions, your spells, your special abilities, your movement speed, armor class, hit points, everything that you would need on a character sheet is dialed down right here on the card.
Yeah.
Would you mind kind of diving in? How does this card work? I see some like turn dials. I see some check marks.
Yeah, so let's take a look at my ranger, who's Grabbleshanks, and
What a name!
I know.
Is that a
right?
family name?
Yes, it is a long line of Grabbleshanks. I'm playing the Harpers, and Grabbleshanks is my ranger. And the first thing I'll point to is that flavor-wise and in D&D terminology, he's a ranger, but this icon in the top corner indicates that he's a ranged damage dealer, and there's a little bit of it's not really super overwhelming list building. It's a pretty streamlined system that'll feel very comfortable, even for people who are familiar with something like Overwatch, where you have defense and attack rolls.
So each player gets the opportunity to build their party based on different roles like tank, damage dealer, healer, utility, support. Okay.
Exactly.
Okay,
exactly.
Yeah.
And so, right now in the core set, we're choosing 5 characters for this scenario from 6 options. But by the end of this year, as additional content rolls out for Onslaught, and we'll talk more about this, you'll have 14 options for each faction. So you'll really be able to customize the team.
Pretty deep pool.
It'll be a deep pool, and so you'll be able to look at, what's the scenario I'm playing? What's the matchup that I'm facing?
Do I want more frontline fighters? Do I want more casters? Do I need more support, or a mix of all of it? That's pretty nice. I'm a frontline kind of guy, so I want more swords.
I can tell just looking at you.
Oh, come on.
But just to kind of quickly take a look at the character card, and I hope this will kind of be visible. But of course, we already talked about sort of what's at the very top of the card, and you have, rather than a specific character portrait, you have sort of this cool shadowy silhouette, and we'll come back to that in a second, because this is another really cool feature of the game in the way that you can actually integrate other miniatures that you might have unpainted, pre-painted from our other lines.
I'm bringing that up later on, because that's interesting to me. Okay.
I know you have more minis than really any sane person should.
That's accurate.
Yeah. But so below the name, and of course Grabbleshanks is the ranger, you have your basic attacks. So I have, in this case, and in the case of most characters, but not all, both a melee and a ranged attack.
Okay.
And the terminology is very simple. The symbology, once you understand sort of how to read one line, you'll be able to pick up any other characters.
It sort of spells everything out you need to know. The action, the attack tells you what action that it takes in that character's round, the damage type it is, how many enemies it can target, its range, its attack bonus, its damage. Everything is laid out for you, so you don't kind of have to go through a bunch of different avenues to calculate that information.
That's right.
Excellent.
Yeah, exactly. And then below those, you have a critical ability. So if you are fortunate enough to roll a 20.
Oh, these hands roll 20s, baby.
Yeah. Well, it's not less about the hands, more about the wrist. But
that's fair. That's fair.
And then some characters, but not all, will also have a passive ability. Oh. And you'll... I think the word flexibility is a really nice word to describe really all the systems of Onslaught and the game itself. And I just wanted to just point out, my barbarian, Drakmau Rockbiter, has a...
Say that name 10 times fast.
I will not.
Don't try.
But I have a passive ability here. I know Rock Pirate Tricks, your sorcerer, has a passive ability.
That's right.
So not all characters are, have exactly the same... sort of template, and the reason for that is that the designers really wanted the characters to all feel very distinct, very, very different to control and move around the board and deploy. but
like an adventuring party.
like an adventuring party,
Sure.
but also to keep them balanced. So there are a lot of things like that where there are little levers that the designers could pull to just make the characters feel totally unique, but not overpowered, underpowered, etc.
So a basic frame, but everyone sort of has their own thing going on.
Very much so. Very much
that.
so.
I like that a lot.
And then you'll of course see that that ethos played out over here with the basic statistics. So in order, you have your speed, your AC, and your health. And I'm sure most of you probably can intuit exactly what those are. But speed determines how many spaces you can move around the board when you take a movement action.
Sure.
AC is of course how hard you are to hit.
Makes sense.
And
to me.
then health is your very lifeblood.
How long
It keeps
you can stay
keeps
in the
you
fight.
standing. Yeah, exactly. And that's one to watch. I'll tell you. I know sometimes you find yours ticking a little lower than.
I'm not afraid to get my hands dirty.
You're scrappy. You're scrappy.
I try. And you certainly kind of have to gauge your risks. As you're looking at the different objectives on the boards, the monsters that are blocking you from those objectives, the position of the enemy adventuring party. There's a lot of factors to pay attention to, but it really seems like an accessible format.
Yeah.
And I like that a lot. Because not everybody is familiar with games like this, but this feels like a good place to maybe bring someone on board.
Well, it's a nice kind of meeting point for, I think, a lot of different types of gamers. If you're a D&D player, but you've never really ventured into like a tactical combat game like this,
Sure.
There's so much flavor that you'll just be, you'll have the context. You'll know what double shot means. You'll know what an opportunity attack is. If you have never played D&D and you're kind of overwhelmed, but you're more of like a board gamer, this actually is kind of a really nice primer for the action economy of D&D. For, again, the other way, some of the skills and abilities that you'll learn to recognize. You're going to know roughly what casting a fireball is. I feel like every TTRPG player has their first encounter with something like fireball,
and it's a memorable one.
Yes,
that's for sure.
Yeah.
And I mean, that information is great. The character cards are great. I love the way they're laid out. But I gotta say, I'm a pretty visual guy, and these miniatures are really capturing my attention.
Let's talk about the minis.
So I know WizKids has a pretty extensive library of pre-painted miniatures, unpainted miniatures,
sprue miniatures,
2D miniatures. So I guess what I'm curious about is what are these miniatures? How do they stand out? Maybe what are some of the differences there are? If I already have a big collection, do I need these miniatures?
Yeah. Well, so the really cool thing about Onslaught is, again, coming back to the idea of flexibility, is that, of course, you get this great selection of pre-painted miniatures.
Right. How many was that again?
That is 21.
21 pre-painted
21
miniatures.
pre-painted minis.
How did they do it?
How did we do it?
How did we do it?
Our coworkers are probably watching this. Like,
yeah.
They did nothing for this, but here we are.
Here we are.
Yeah. But because we are WizKids
Yeah.
and we've done, like you were referencing, so many minis across all those different lines and categories, we wanted to build this game from the ground up with the idea that people have big collections of miniatures. They have miniatures.
Myself.
Yeah,
I'm
right.
fully stocked.
That's right. People have miniatures that they painted that they are really.
They work hard to paint.
I'm a quite mediocre painter, so I have a lot of respect.
I wasn't
going
to say it, but you are.
Yeah. Well, thank you for being honest. I appreciate that at least. But so the idea is that we wanted to make it possible for not only these miniatures. Of course, they're the right size. They're fully compatible with D&D. You can take these miniatures. You can use them in any encounter, campaign, etc.
That's awesome.
Our nice clear bases that we've moved to, of course.
That word flexibility resonating there. And I think an important note, too, to point out is that these miniatures are kind of exclusive against our other lines of miniatures. These sculpts are unique to Onslaught.
And only available
through Onslaught.
At least for now.
Okay.
And we're committed to a year of exclusivity for these miniatures in the Onslaught core set and the other products that we'll take a look at in a sec. But, I think we wanted to. These are such amazing sculpts. We didn't want to, confirm or commit to that forever. And there may be some other cool things we do with these sculpts down the road. But for now, yes, this is the way to get these.
So for the miniature collector, the miniature connoisseur, there's still sort of value in collecting these specific WizKids miniatures.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, you might know better than I. Have we ever done a young black dragon?
Certainly not to this
Yeah.
impressive size
Right.
and stance and, frankly, lethality.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful piece. And this comes out of the box, pre-painted, ready to go.
Ready to go. Ready to go.
Absolutely.
And you might be wondering, how do we fit this in the box?
Will, how do we fit that in the box?
I'm glad you
I'm
asked.
wondering.
Yeah, I thought you might be.
Yeah.
So we actually have just some really nice friction fit wings that
So the
pop on and off,
wings
super
pop
easy.
right off.
Yep.
You put them right back in.
And you put them right back in, so
Excellent.
you can stow it in the box. But I like to keep it out.
Oh,
I mean,
well,
come on.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's the pride of the pack there.
That's right.
Awesome. So we know about the character cards. We know
Well,
about the miniatures.
I was going to say, so we talked about how these miniatures might be useful to people, to gamers outside of Onslaught specifically.
Okay.
But there's also the flip side, which is how can I use my other miniatures with Onslaught, which is another really cool, again, where other similar games might be very prescriptive about specifically the game pieces you need to use on
you
the
have
board.
to use this piece for this specific scenario or this piece for this card.
Right,
But
exactly.
you're saying we have some flexibility there?
Well, we wanted to leverage the massive catalog that we've developed over the years and released for compatibility with Onslaught, because it's such a cool opportunity. You know, like we were talking about, people have painted player character miniatures that they love, that they've used in their campaigns, that are battle hardened and scarred and worn and have been through so much, and we wanted to make it possible for
so much pressure for like a little plastic miniature
I
character.
know, right?
You know
yeah,
what I mean?
a lot riding.
Really
on,
going through the turmoil of it. That's great.
Right. So we wanted to make it possible for someone to have the opportunity to deploy some of those miniatures into Onslaught, or maybe just something that they see on the shelf of their local store and they get excited about.
So what you're saying is, if I have a collection, or my buddy has a collection that of WizKids miniatures that I would like to use in the game, I can?
Yes.
How does that work?
Exactly. So that works, again, going back to this kind of shadowy silhouette that you see on each character card, rather than a specific portrait. This is a ranger that I just held up, right?
Right.
So if you go on our Onslaught website, dndonslaught.com, that's DND, not D ampersand D, dndonslaught.com, we have for each faction a official proxy list.
Oh.
And what that does is, and this will expand as the character faction rosters expand.
Sure.
What that does is that gives you a list, again, across those different types of miniatures, those different lines, unpainted, pre-painted, sprue miniatures. It gives you a officially compatible, tournament legal list of miniatures that you can use in place of grapple shanks, for example.
Okay.
So I don't have to. I mean, I happen to really love this little miniature.
Rattleshanks is one of like the keystone characters.
He's small, so I'm not sure how well he'll show up from this range, but it's a great mini. But I might have another ranger again who's been through a campaign with me. And so what I can do is I can go in the proxy list and I can see specifically my options. And then that, like I said, tournament legal, so you can use them everywhere. Of course, if you're playing just kitchen table at home with your friends, you know, all bets are off. You can put anything you want on the board.
Yeah, I mean, Will and I aren't going to, come into your house and tell you how to play your game. You can do what you want.
I mean, if you're inviting us, we might come and play, but we're not going to tell you how to play. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. Well, that's really great.
Well, so the one thing I would say further is that it's not just for player character miniatures. So there'll be proxy lists for all the player character miniatures.
Don't say it. I can bring in my monsters.
You can bring in your monsters, and the way we're going to do that is slightly different. So rather than having a proxy list, what we'll do is we're going to release additional scenarios.
Okay.
Some will be just released digitally online for free.
So I can just
DLC,
download them, print them,
download them,
play.
print them.
I don't
You
have
might
to,
have
pay online or anything.
Mm-mm. Nope.
Okay.
Nope.
I like that.
But then we also will take some scenarios and package them up with the monster cards, which some of these also have the dials. They're dual layered. Some of them are just simple kind of poker cards that govern the monster behavior, along with there are times some specific scenario rules. But what those will do is you'll get a pack of monster cards, you'll get some scenarios, and then those will point you towards a huge selection of WizKids miniatures. So we have our first kind of pro-published scenario pack coming in June. It includes 6 more scenarios that'll kind of take you through a little bit of a narrative, and
there's minis to support that too.
So there will be minis to support that don't come in the pack. That pack's only going to be $25 because it's just cardboard and paper.
Sure.
But what it does is it points you towards a big selection of like beholders, boulets, etc. So it's a way to, again, if you have a favorite beholder that you've painted, put that out on the board, and
Gotcha.
it's officially supported. Of course, really, you can use any beholder that you like. But we wanted to just give people a little bit of a sense of, hey, maybe I don't have a beholder,
Yeah.
but I would like one.
Yeah.
What
No,
are my
I mean
options?
that all seems pretty straightforward
Yeah.
and digestible
Yeah.
to me. I'm pretty curious though. There's kind of a lot here. We got 21 pre-painted miniatures. We've got all these character cards. We've got dice. We've got
Yeah.
tokens. We've got books.
So that's a
It seems like a lot to pack into one place. I'm curious. I mean, I'm just going to ask you straight up. What kind of monetary
Yeah.
investment am I looking
No,
at
that's
here?
a good question, and probably something that we should have mentioned earlier. I was thinking that talking about how the scenario pack is $25, which is
Sure.
a great price to get more.
So yeah, the core set.
yeah, so the core set-
Onslaught right off the shelf. I'm going to my local game store. I'm taking it to the counter. What's it ringing up as?
So it's $140, $139.99 MSRP, and again for 21 pre-painted miniatures on a per miniature price basis, that's actually a really.
As a guy who spent a lot of money on miniatures, that actually feels like a pretty comfortable price for everything included here.
Yeah.
And with the flexibility and the longevity of the game, and it sounds like there's going to be tournament support.
Tournament support, you'll be able to engage in your local store and play in events, and there'll be foil cards and repos minis,
Sure.
and even some of the tokens that come with the core set are going to be upgraded to actual physical miniatures, and I think we have a mimic floating around from the launch organized play kit
Sure.
that was available at local game stores. But
Okay.
but yeah, so I think investing in the core set, you'll find there's going to be just a huge amount of support for the game, even downloadable content for free.
Love hearing that.
Once you have the board, you have the minis, you have the character cards. There's going to be so much you can do with it. And again, I think we as a team fully recognize that some people are just going to say, I want all those minis, and they'll buy it just for that. And then we hope that once you have this cool game, you'll dive in.
Kind of get into it too.
Kind of similar to the adventure system games that we've published over the
Excellent.
years that had really nice collections of miniatures. I think this certainly is a nice spiritual successor to that line as well.
I think that's great. And so yeah, so for roughly $140, I can get everything we're seeing here in terms of miniatures, cards, the double-sided game board, the tokens, everything I need to deep dive.
That's right.
There's still so much of Onslaught to cover to talk about. I'm a little curious about one mechanic as well. We talked about the players and how they work, but the monsters and how they work. Because I'm looking at the board here, I see individual cards for like kobolds, but these bigger cards for trolls. How do they work? Do they have their own stats? Is that something that's easily?
So it's a good question. And
Yeah.
Of course, if you're a D&D player, you see a monster on the board, you're wondering, okay, what's the stat block?
Yeah, because
look
normally
like?
as a player, I
Yeah.
don't really understand that information, but it seems like it's accessible here.
Yes, it
Okay.
is. So of course, another thing about this game, of course, as many people have probably intuited already, is that you don't need a game master, right?
You don't need a game master.
You don't need a game master, so you're sitting down head to head. You can get right into that D&D
So
combat.
someone who
I know someone
know where
who
I'm
is
going
a game
with
master might feel a little shorted, but
No.
you can play too, which is the great
You're
thing.
bringing me
Yeah.
to tears.
Even dungeon masters can play.
Even dungeon masters
Yeah.
can play.
Can actually
Wow.
play. Yeah.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah.
That's really great.
But so the monsters.
Yeah, the monsters.
Yeah.
Let's take a closer look. So we have the Cobalt Sentry here. You can kind of get a quick look, hopefully, at some of the details on the card.
It's a standard poker card for these smaller monsters.
So I can sleeve them up.
You can sleeve them up. Oh yeah,
Because
yeah.
how good
You gotta-
a
you
sleeved
gotta
card feels.
Protect
right?
the goods. Yeah.
Even the Cobalt Sentry deserves a sleeved card. I see similar symbols that I saw on the character sheets. It looks like this Cobalt has a specified movement speed, specified armor class, hit points, and some abilities of their own. Stuff that makes sense. A spear attack, a sling attack. It looks like some unique abilities like a tower shield, something like pack tactics. But something I'm curious about too is that there's two sides to it. What's the purpose of having these two-sided
Right. So you'll find even with the
cards?
larger monsters,
Yeah,
you'll find that there are multiple sides.
So there's a troll on this
Yeah.
side, and then there's a young troll on this side.
Still nasty, but maybe a little less
Sure.
nasty than the adult troll.
So is there some sort of like mechanical structure behind that?
Yes. So it's basically just a way to add more monster diversity to the pool, but while still pointing to the same miniature on the board.
Oh, I see. So
Yeah.
the young troll will have like a different stat block than the regular troll.
Different stat block, different abilities,
Okay.
etc. Certainly less health. But and that'll just depend on the scenario that you're playing.
Okay.
That's right. How you set it up. And then I think we've talked a little bit about. I think we mentioned initiative in that this is a round-based initiative
Oh, right.
system.
So normally I'm used to
Rolling.
A counter starts. We roll initiative. We assign initiative numbers.
Yep.
From descending order, highest to lowest. Is that different in Onslaught?
It is, but I will say though that I believe for every game of Onslaught, the
Mhm.
final step of setup is to roll for initiative. So you're still going to get to chuck your D20.
Okay. That's important to me.
Yeah,
You know that.
I know
That's
that.
important
I know
to me.
that. Yeah. But generally, the way that the initiative, the action order system will work in every
Okay.
round is the active player will be the player with initiative 1. And this will pass round to round. So
Okay.
this
So
will
initiative
alternate.
starts on 1 and not like 20.
Starts on 1, and right, so it's ascending order.
Okay, so ascending
So
order.
so we're starting with 1.
That's tough for me, but I think I can follow that.
It's a simple just mind trick to flip the order, right? Going up instead
You're
of going
always so
down.
good to me.
I know. We'll walk you through it. But of course, you'll get a bunch of. And again, these are all integers, 1 through 10.
Okay.
But then the monsters, if you want to hold up a couple of those monster.
All right, they
initiative
have
cards,
their own. I see like an 8.5 here.
Yes. So they will act in between players
Ooh, I see.
at times. And again, that's all sort of governed by the specific scenario setup.
Sure.
But the way the game works is that, again, the active player, the player who's assigned the initiative 1 card, will alternate round to round.
Okay.
But then the other initiative cards are going to be shuffled up and then sort of handed out. So we'll each have a set of numbered cards that we then secretly, without revealing to the other player, will assign to our characters.
So we shuffle them up. I would get 5 initiative cards. You would get 5 initiative cards.
Yep.
Whoever had initiative 1 on the previous round hands that off to their counterpart.
Yep.
And then you privately assign initiative.
Yeah,
and
so
then
you'll,
sort of
you'll
like
assign them face down.
reveal it all at once, sort of thing.
So you reveal turn by turn.
Turn by turn.
Yeah.
So you don't know which character is going next.
Yes. Well, you should know the character's
Well,
order for on your side.
I don't
but you
know
don't know
your
you don't know mine.
characters.
Yeah.
All right.
It's all random.
Wise guy. Yeah.
So it's a really kind of simple system that feels, there's a little bit of like an action programming where you have to sort of say, okay, like, this character is running pretty low on health. I better have them go higher in initiative. But then you might, assign the 1 to the character who's going to knock them out before they get to go. Sometimes
Right.
that happens. But also looking at, okay, when are the monsters going to act? I want to be sure to, try to take out that kobold
Sure.
before it gets to them and they get to
That feels
blink
like a
away at
pretty
me.
fresh way to spin the initiative. You're not exactly sure which characters are going next in terms of your opponent. You have to be mindful of when the monsters are going and plan your actions around this sort of mysterious initiative system.
Yeah.
I feel like that could get pretty tense.
Oh, it can. But I know you're no stranger to a little bit of pressure, a
That's
little bit of
fair.
tension
That's
at the
fair.
table.
That's fair.
You rise to the occasion.
Another thing I'm kind of seeing on the table here that there's so much catching my eye. There's some tokens as well, but
We haven't even talked about looting.
we haven't even talked about looting, and I love a good magical item or sack of gold coins.
Well,
So what are we working with here? Run me through.
yeah. So I think hopefully from this angle you guys can see that we have some treasure chests scattered around the board.
I see 4 treasure chests. It looks like some keys.
A couple of keys,
All
which
right.
those are kind of, you'll see those pop up here and there depending on the scenario. We have
Once
a couple
again.
keys on the board. Again, all of these, all this loot is a little bit maybe too close to this troll for for comfort, but we also have this bag of treasure tokens. So as a bonus action in the game, and again, the action economy, if you're familiar with D&D, other TTRPGs, is you'll feel right at home. But as a bonus action, if you are on or adjacent to a treasure chest, you can loot. You can loot it.
Give me that treasure.
and what you'll do is you will
So I'm looting a treasure chest right
looting
now.
a treasure chest.
I've made it to the treasure.
Right
I've
here,
cleared
I'll
the troll.
Let you pick.
My character's opening the treasure. I just reach in here
You
and
reach in
what,
here and
do I
then-
grab just one?
Grab
Okay.
grab one.
I grab one, and I found a potion.
A potion.
So what do I do now?
And again, this is another way, another place where Onslaught feels very flexible because
Okay.
so that's just an icon.
This
You
is
get an icon
literally
of a
I don't know
potion.
what to do with this. You have to tell me what to do.
Yeah. So you'll look through the treasure cards.
So this looks like a stack of treasure cards.
Yep.
Oh.
and
Hey,
then
look, wait, matching
icons, and then you'll see what you got.
I flip it over. I've got a healing
You
potion.
got a healing potion.
It looks like as a bonus action, I can quaff a potion to heal one of my characters 3 points of damage.
There you go.
That makes sense. You can never have enough healing potions, folks. Don't forget it.
That's true.
Great.
And so, again, it's D&D, so you might run into some nasty stuff in chess. It's not all just
It's not all fun and
it's not all
games?
happy, fun and games looting. There are mimics in this game.
Mimics, you say?
There are mimics, which, of course, is really fun. We have a really cool mimic miniature that's exclusive that we put in the organized play launch kit, so it's been available at stores.
Oh,
so if
awesome.
you go play in your local store, ask about the mimics. But the treasure system, again, it has this really cool flexibility where we will release more treasure cards, and then these tokens
Yeah.
that don't, they just have an icon on them, can point to other cards.
Sure.
So depending on the scenario you're playing, depending, on the setup, you might, that could be a healing potion, it could be an invisibility potion. There obviously D&D is so rich with millions of magical items. So it's a really neat little system in the game.
That's pretty slick.
Yeah.
That's pretty slick. I mean, I'm looking around. We're talking a lot about this game. We're pointing out some cool stuff. Will, I got to say, I think it might be time to quit the chatter and start rolling some dice. How do you feel about that?
I feel good, although I suspect that there will be more chatter along with the dice.
Well,
rolling.
yeah, a lot about how I'm dominating the board here.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. All right.
Hey, I've got my squad over here, so
Yeah.
it looks like you got your predetermined starting spaces depending on the encounter.
Right. Zones to kind of deploy out our parties into.
Taking a closer look too, I see a familiar grid on here. I'm assuming each square is 5 feet.
Exactly.
Which corresponds to my character sheet here, telling me how many squares I can move.
Yep. And I think before we maybe start taking some turns and showing people how
what am I
the
missing?
characters are going to move around the board and cast spells and use their weapons.
Yeah.
We should just give a brief intro on this scenario.
Oh
that we've
yeah,
set
tell
up.
me what I'm doing, because I'm here about to jump into the front lines, not
you
knowing what's
just
going
want
on.
to roll. So we have set up here. It's scenario 3 from the core set.
3 out of how many?
3 out of 7, and then again
Okay.
you get those other. So that's not including the death match.
Oh,
and the control
right.
point, etc. But this is scenario 3 of 7. It's called loot recovery.
Loot
and
recovery.
I know you love loot. So
I'm looking at that. Looking at that treasure chest.
That's right. That's right. So just in brief, each game of Onslaught, of course, you're always incentivized to knock out the opposing party, the opposing adventurers, as expediently as you can.
Okay.
But there are always going to be scenario-specific objectives that might score you points in different ways. And in the case of loot recovery, as you might guess, it's about basically looting these chests, and these kobolds are also going to have a little loot to drop for us.
Okay.
And bringing the loot to these neutral zones, which are loot deposits, basically, on either side of the board. Now, the trick is that these keys unlock the portcullises that have been dropped in front of...
As keys do.
As keys do,
Okay.
yeah. So the key on each side of the troll corresponds to the opposite control point.
Of course it does.
So if you want to open this portcullis, you have to pick up this key, and you got to mosey your way on down to this control point, and you have to control it.
Excellent.
And you control it by having more characters than your opponent on those 4 squares that make up that control point.
I think I can manage that.
Once you control it, your characters can pass freely through this gate and can dump loot into the recovery zone.
Wonderful. Yeah, I mean, I would love to jump into a couple rounds, and then maybe before we wrap things up, I would love to hear about what else is coming up for Onslaught, because I'm sure there's just more than the core set, right?
Oh, there is, and we've got a couple things. We've talked about some of the downloadable content, the scenario packs.
Sure.
We have a couple things to show you here, but let's roll some dice.
Yeah, let's give people a taste of the core set of Onslaught. Should we roll for initiative?
Let's roll for initiative.
All right. So I'm rolling 2 dice here, and what are we, just taking the higher roll?
Taking the high roll,
All
which
right.
is going to be over here.
And if we're not already, if we could have a closer shot of the board here to give everyone a good view.
Yeah.
Okay, I've got some trouble on my side.
You do. That's looking to me. It's upside down, but from here I think I can see that that's a nat 1 right there. That
Yes,
you're working
it
with.
is.
Yeah. And I didn't actually roll that great, but I have a 5 and a 12. And
Okay.
I don't know specifically about the rules for rolling a nat 1 when rolling for initiative, but I would think that you'd be disqualified here.
I fumble here. But you know what? I'm a late game player anyway, so I'll let you take initiative.
Right. Start
number
very
1.
weak, very, very weak, and then you sort of get a little head of steam. But thank you. That's very generous. I will start.
No problem.
So
Give these a quick shuffle.
Gave me the 1 already, and then so you'll split 2 through 6 into one pile, and then 7 through 10 into another. It's just so that we're kind of weighting things a little more evenly.
Yeah, that's what you need the handicap, right?
Right. So then if you shuffle those 5
Okay.
and deal, so I already have the 1, so deal me 2, and then deal yourself 3 of those.
Very good.
And then I will give us each 2 of these later in the round initiative cards.
So 2 for you, 3 for me.
Yeah, and then here are your other 2. So now
Okay.
we each have 5.
Each got 5.
And again, we will quickly assign these to our characters.
Yeah, I'm just diving in. Let's see here. I'm thinking here. I'm thinking here. Here. All right, I'm ready to go.
Wow. All right, that was
It's okay. Take your time. You know, feel like you're making important decisions. Every card counts.
That's right. All right, I think I'm gonna.
Looking at this troll, we got some kobolds out here.
Okay.
You ready?
I'm ready.
All right.
So I'm first with my 1, and I have initiative 1 on my bard, actually.
Ooh.
So
sending in the bard first.
Sending in the bard first, and I wanted to do this specifically because of a little thing called inspiration.
Inspiration, you say?
Yeah. I'm going. So I have a movement speed of 5. So I'll move 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
And that's 5 squares.
Yes, and that is not diagonal.
So I don't move on an angle.
You don't move on an angle, so you
Okay.
have to move orthogonally, but you can attack diagonally. So
Okay.
for attacking adjacency, you have all 8 squares.
All the squares
you.
around you,
Yeah,
the
exactly.
sides. Okay.
And similarly, for calculating range on a ranged attack, you can count diagonally toward your target.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's important to know.
But I've kind of moved a little bit out of the way, kind of dancing around this troll in the center.
I'm curious too. I see some structures, some objects on the map, like the statue, like this wall of rocks. Is that something I need to be aware of? Is it going to matter when I'm moving?
Yes,
Or attacking?
It does, which is a good question. So, and this will all be indicated in the rule book, of course.
Okay.
But basically, you're working with pretty simple terrain rules. You'll have some terrain like these statues that is just impassable blocking terrain. So you can't move through it, you can't shoot through it, you can't see through it,
Sure.
etc. You'll also have some that's sort of, it's
Looks like a crumbled wall or something.
yeah, crumbled wall, some piles of rocks, and
Okay.
basically, with this type of terrain, you'll be able to actually move over it, and you can see that there are there are gridded squares here.
I see.
So it is passable, but you will have to spend more movement points.
So like
to
climb
move
up
through
it or something like
Yeah.
that, or difficult
But-
terrain.
But because there's a little bit of rock, you will actually be considered to be in cover.
Ooh.
So if someone's firing an arrow at you, they will roll. So in Onslaught, you're typically rolling 2 d20s when you attack
I'm always rolling 2d20s when I attack.
by default.
I like that.
But if I'm in cover, you'll be rolling with only 1.
Gotcha.
So basically, at
Makes sense. Harder to hit
Yeah,
you
harder
because
to
you
hit.
got some cover. Okay,
Exactly.
great. Is your bard doing anything else on this turn, or just moving?
Yes. So I have a bonus ability, inspiration. So this says, and this is a cooldown 5. So I'll show you how cooldowns work. But so gain inspiring, which
Mhm.
means that friendly characters at range 0 to 5 will gain +2 to their highest die rolls and +1 damage with basic attacks.
Wow.
So I'm not sure.
Now
if
that's an inspiration.
That's an inspiration. So again, I can calculate 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I think that's everyone here.
That's your whole squad.
That's my whole squad.
Great.
And I will gain inspiring, and I'm not sure if we have the token out, but we'll remember that.
Sure.
And then this is a bonus action. I'll set the cooldown to 5, which means that at the end of every round, it'll tick down until it becomes available again. But
So I tick down every round until I see that check mark again, right? And that means
Exactly,
the
and the little
ability is
wheel.
refreshed.
exactly.
Makes sense.
Exactly.
Makes sense.
So that was my bonus, and I haven't taken a standard action.
Okay.
And which typically is, you'd use your basic attacks as a standard action. Some of your cooldown abilities you will use a standard action, etc. But I can trade my standard action in this case for another move action. So there's sort of that action hierarchy that
Oh.
lets me sort of cascade a more valuable action
Okay.
down. So I will use another move action, and I'm just going to actually nestle up my bard right behind this this statue. So that's number 1.
Okay.
All right.
So now we look for initiative 2.
Which actually is also over
Yeah,
here.
I know it's
Yeah.
because I don't have initiative 2. So.
And so I have Lightning Dancer, my fighter, and I'm going to use my 4 points of movement. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Charging right in.
Charging right in. Now there is a little bit of elevation to contend with here.
Okay.
So I actually won't be able to make it up to that troll, even with an extra move, and even with my challenge. So I'm actually thinking I'm not sure if I can make it over to that kobold yet, but maybe I'll just use 1, 2, 3, 4.
Getting pretty close there.
Yeah, maybe I'll just slide here so I'm not within range. But
Coward.
No, you know what? Actually, I will go there because Lightning Dancer, as a fighter, actually has an experience gain trigger that happens when I'm attacked by an enemy.
Oh, okay.
I'm not sure we talked
I
much
was
about
just going to
experience,
say,
but
it seems like there's some basic ways to earn experience, and then each character has their own unique way to earn experience.
yes. So there are global experience gain triggers like healing yourself or an ally, looting a chest, and
Okay.
then making a successful attack.
So actually hitting something.
Actually hitting something.
Okay.
Um,
And what do I do with experience points?
So I'll add also that each character has a unique experience gain trigger. Now, when you gain 5 experience points, you will level up.
Okay.
And you can level up each character once per scenario, and then choose from a couple of abilities.
Oh.
Some of which are passive. Some might
that
heal
what
you
these cards
immediately. Others might unlock another ability.
So you level up, you get a
attack.
new ability, a new passive to make you a little beefier on the battlefield.
People know what leveling up means. But,
yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
Yeah. So I think we don't have to go too in depth into the explanation. So that's really all I can do. I think.
Okay. Well, then I'm gonna go
Yeah.
if you're done because I have initiative 3, which is my trusty paladin.
Okay.
And a paladin wants to destroy evil, at least in this case. So I'm charging him right in up to this troll. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to, with a bonus action, use my magic weapon, which means I gain the magic weapon token, which I'm just
very
going
nice.
to put underneath the miniature.
Does that have a cooldown?
It does have a cooldown of 5. But it allows me to gain magic weapon, and I get a +1 to hit and +1 to damage with my melee weapon, and my melee weapon is now considered a magical attack instead of a melee attack. So he's charged up, ready for some smiting, which is what I want my paladin to do.
Right. That's what they do.
And then I think for his standard action, I'm just going to scoot him in a little closer, 2 more squares to the base of this.
Now you're in between. So you're at elevation 0 here, kind of the base, and then this kind of dais, platform around the throne.
I see some stairs up to the throne.
Stairs. So you would be moving on to elevation 1 here, which again, moving up a layer of elevation costs an additional movement point.
Okay.
So you moved 1, 2. Now you could, and you may not want to get too close, but you could spend your movement points 3 and 4 to take a step up onto.
I'm spending movement points 3 and 4 to step
there you
up
go.
onto
There he
here.
goes. All right.
Excellent.
Okay.
And that's number 3.
That's number 3.
I don't know. Do you have number 4?
I do have number 4.
Well, let's
yeah,
see
this has been a lot of me so far. So I have Grabble
Isn't
Shanks.
it always?
Yeah, that's true.
Will?
That's true. So I have Grabble Shanks here, which is my ranger. We've talked about Grabble Shanks.
Yeah.
And I'm going to I'm going to make a move up toward this troll as well. So 1, 2, 3, 4.
He's skirting right by there.
And I'm not quite in range yet.
Well, what range does he have?
So he has, with his short bow, has range. Target one enemy at range 2 through 6. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Okay, so that troll is just out of your 6.
I'm not quite there.
Okay, I see.
But what I'll do is I will use my standard action to make another move, and I'm not sure. Now I'm in range. I'm not sure I want to get too much closer here, so I might just do that. Maybe I'll scoot over towards. I'll scoot over towards my fighter there.
Okay.
And then. Oh, actually, I think I have to go here. So now I'm still within range, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh no, I can be back.
Make
here.
up your mind, man.
I will.
Make up your mind.
I'm going to stay safe. I'm going to try to stay safe. But then I'm going to use double shot, and I'm going to make an attack on that troll.
So double shot is what, a bonus action?
So double
then?
shot is a bonus action. It's a cooldown ability, so I'll set it to 5.
All right.
And it just says it basically lets me, shoot an extra arrow. So
Oh,
double
wow.
shot is a bonus action, and it just says make a ranged attack with my short bow. So I'm going to roll.
We'll see what you get.
Both my dice. And I have a 12 and a 14. So
What
I
are
have
your
14 with a +5 to hits and 19. Would you
so just for clarity's sake,
Yeah.
on your attacks, unless it's said otherwise, you roll 2 dice
Exactly.
and take the higher roll.
Yes.
Wow,
Yeah.
that helps kind of keep things moving along, doesn't it?
You're waiting. We're waiting things toward
Hitting.
towards things happening.
Because that's what you want to do.
Yeah. So you have to be careful. If you overextend a character, they might get cut down pretty quick.
Just delete it
Yeah.
off the board.
Yeah.
So what was your total again?
So I have 14 plus a modifier of +5 to hit.
Wow.
So that's a 19. How
A
does that
19
compare against
against
the troll's AC?
the troll's armor class is a 15, so that's a hit.
So that's 2 damage.
Whew.
Please.
So then I go to the troll here. I dial it down 2 points.
Yep.
Excellent.
And then the other thing I'll note is that in this scenario, of course, we have this big nasty troll on the board.
Right.
There's another victory point gain mechanism or objective here, which
You were
is
just
that
going to keep that to yourself, not tell me how to score victory points?
that's right, yeah, so that I can take advantage of this first. And I don't
I feel like I'm in the
I-
onslaught.
I don't quite score a point here, but for every 3 damage that we do to the troll,
Right.
which we'll track on this tracker,
Handy dandy tracker.
I will we'll gain a point. So
Excellent.
that's 2 damage. So I'll mark that I've done 2 damage, which doesn't quite get me a point, but
You're close.
I'm
You're
close. I'm close.
Anything else from your ranger?
No, that was a move action, and then
Yep.
I exchanged my standard for a move, and then I
Right.
did my bonus action double shot.
Awesome. Well, then I'm diving in.
Well, actually, I'm going to stop you right there, Joe, because unfortunately the troll is going to act at 4.5.
At 4.5.
So that's before you can get to your monk, which now you've telegraphed. I guess it doesn't matter because I'm not controlling this troll.
Okay, so initiative 4, we go to initiative 4.5 for the troll. How do I know what the troll's doing? We don't have a game master or another player controlling them.
We don't.
What do I do?
So what we'll do is between the scenario, which I just pulled up here
Yeah.
quickly, and this red box specifically governs the monster AI
Okay.
alongside the character or the monster card itself.
So the specific scenario sort of dictates the
Mhm.
troll's motives?
Yep.
Okay.
So unfortunately for you,
What's it want to do? It wants treasure, right?
each time the troll activates,
Okay.
it will move toward the closest character as directly as possible, and then attack.
I accept the actions of my consequences. Wait,
So-
the other way around, right?
Yeah.
The consequences of my actions.
So the troll will be descending
Oh, no.
from higher elevation, so it doesn't have to move about it doesn't have to care about extra ove
Okay.
movement.
So it moves.
And we look at its move, which is 4, so it can definitely reach you. And then we look at the card and we can see what melee attack it
So the
has.
trolls are sort of built like these character cards. I see that it has a slash attack, one enemy at range 1 to 2, so it has some range actually.
It does. It does.
+6 to hit and 3 damage on a hit.
So
Be-
it's attacking you, so I'm
Be
gonna roll. I'm
gentle.
gonna roll for the troll.
Okay.
All right.
My
And it-
paladin, yeah,
What's your AC? What are you working?
17 armor class, so
17,
I'm feeling
that's
pretty
high.
good.
Yeah. Okay.
Got that heavy armor on. Ooh.
Oh, I rolled poorly. I rolled a 6 and
6
a 2.
plus 6 is 12.
That's 12.
That's
I
underneath
think
the
you're- I
17.
think you're safe.
The dungeon hears a loud clink as the troll
Right.
scratches my armor.
The troll tries to just flick you with its,
Yeah.
its claw.
no good.
Yeah.
It's no
Okay.
good. So the troll moved, the troll attacked. It doesn't look like it has any bonus actions, so that's the troll's turn.
Yeah.
So now I can do initiative
Yeah.
5, which is my monk, who
I
has
love this character.
who has just a fantastic stat block. I'm going to run him into battle to try to support my paladin. So we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4. I've got stun, I've got fury of blows, I've got mobility, but that's not really helping me right now. So I'm just going to move again. Wait, no, 5 movement. 5 movement here, and then we're going to charge in here, here, and here.
So that was your
There's my standard and my movement.
and your move.
Yeah.
Now I believe that monk has a ranged attack that uses a bonus action as
Oh, I
opposed to a
see
standard.
that.
So you actually might be able
So
to
I
take
could
a
sort
pot
of
shot.
end back here and use my sling attack
You
as
could,
a bonus
yeah,
action.
yeah.
That's pretty handy. Thanks for the tip, bud.
You're welcome. I see you have your hands full. So
So I got a +4 to hit on my sling. It deals 1 damage. Let's see what we can do. The higher roll is an 8. +4 is 12, which is gonna
that's
miss.
not
It
going to
just
do it.
bounces
Again,
off his
just
thick
a
hide.
little throwing a rock at the troll.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I'll cut my losses and move on to initiative 6, which is my sorcerer. My sorcerer's movement speed is 4.
And again, we didn't point this out, but of course you can move through
Oh, I
friendly
can.
characters freely,
Okay.
but not.
They can't share space. They're not that good of friends.
No, they're not. They're not.
Not like us.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
We would happily
We could share a
space.
space.
Yeah.
Okay. My sorcerer has a firebolt range 2 to 5, so I'm going to count that out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I don't have to worry about elevation with my range attacks.
Only in the case that
There would be cover.
Imagine if you had higher elevation in between you and your target. So if I'm at 0, my target's at 0, but there's elevation 1, 2 in between
Okay,
us.
so then I couldn't.
Then I can't.
That makes
it's sort of
sense.
thematically what you think you'd be able to see. But in
Oh.
this case, you've got a nice clear line of sight.
Excellent. I'm going to throw my firebolt down. It has a +5 to hit and will deal 2 points of fire damage. What do we got there, Will?
That looks like the Zentarum faction symbol, which I believe
I
is
rolled a natural
a
20
nat
then.
20. Yes, yeah.
Okay, so what's going on? Do I do some more stuff?
So you'll still follow the ability
Okay.
as sort of laid out on your
So
character
deal
card.
2 damage to the
Will
troll.
do 2 damage, but then you'll note your critical ability, which
Oh,
says +1 damage, and you may reduce the cooldowns of each of your cooldown dials by
awesome.
1. In this
So
case, you haven't used your
right,
abilities yet, so that's wasted. But the extra damage is
I'll
not,
take the extra damage.
which will be
Give me
three damage,
give me
which
a victory
gets you a
point.
shiny victory point. Well done.
Hey, well, would you mind telling me who's in the lead right now in terms of victory points for this scenario?
I'm looking at this, and I don't know. I'm having a hard time reading this. I see a 0 and a 1, but I'm not quite sure. So we'll come back to that maybe
Excellent.
later after the stream.
Well, I'm very happy with my critical hit for my sorcerer, so I'm fine to end his turn. That
Yeah.
was initiative 6.
So I know we're running a little low on time. and
Yes.
I'm thinking, unfortunately.
Am I getting caught up in the game?
I think you're getting caught up in the game.
We
You're
have
getting
some more
caught up
stuff
in
to
the
talk
game.
about. So,
Um,
I mean, this is fun. You can see how you get into the action right away. You start rolling dice. You start attacking. The troll draw,
The
gets
troll's
his
immediately
aggro,
getting-
John.
getting involved here.
You can start to strategize your next turns. But
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
in all games of Onslaught, there's this really fun tension between. Okay, so our parties are sort of dancing around this central throne area,
Yeah.
but at a certain point, where I'm going to say, okay, I'll pick up this key, and I'm going to try and start bringing some treasure into the neutral zone here, into the loot recovery deposit.
Sure.
But you're going to come over this way too, and then so there's the tension of, do I worry about this troll that's trying to bash me over the head,
Yeah.
or do I worry about trying to take out one of my opponent's characters?
That's a fair point. And you can see with just 6 turns within the first round of combat how much the board is already shifting with
Yeah.
characters and monsters moving.
Right.
That's really awesome. I am a little curious to take us away a little bit.
Yeah.
I see some extra boxes over here.
Yeah,
That's
so-
not just the core set.
Right. So we've sort of touched on some of these things where
Okay.
in the core set we have these 2 factions, and
Right.
I think even just a couple of turns we've demonstrated how different the characters can play, and how thematically they feel very much like you would expect. Based
I was
on-
already lost in it.
Right, I know. You were DMing, even though we don't need one. But we, of course, we have a lot more planned for this game, and some of it has already sort of started to hit store shelves. So,
What do we got?
So, like I said, we have the Harpers, we have the Zentarum in here, and by the end of the year, those factions will be expanded to have 14 character options.
Wow.
Additionally, we've already released 2 additional factions for the game that come
Which
in these
factions?
standalone packs. So we have the Many
Yeah.
Arrows
I'll hold this one. Many arrows. Okay.
and the Red Wizards. And as you can see, each of these are sort of packaged separately, and they come with the miniatures, the faction dice, and the character cards, and then the experience or the
Sure.
level up cards, and all the bits and chits that you need
So
to.
I get the pre-printed minis.
Yeah.
I get the dice associated with the faction. All the cards you need to implement them into the game.
Yes.
What am I spending on this faction pack?
So these are $59.99
Okay.
each. And again, if you're of course, you might just love these factions, and they have their own sort of faction identity. They have their own thematic feel. The Many Arrows are very much a rush in and smash and bash faction.
My type of faction.
Right. And then the Red Wizards are hanging back and letting their summons kind of go out and do the dirty work.
Awesome.
And so the other thing to note here is that these factions are also going to expand to 14 characters by the end of the year. So there are
a
going to be
lot.
so many character options. There are also going to be sellswords that are releasing
Oh.
for the game, and there are going to be a couple of sellswords expansion packs, and those basically give you mercenary characters that can be integrated into any faction.
So each faction can hire these mercenaries to
Mhm.
bolster their
Eventually,
ranks.
there'll be enough sellswords that they can be a standalone mercenary faction
That's a
as
beautiful
well.
thing.
So by the end of this year, there'll be literally dozens and dozens of characters, 5 factions if you're counting sellswords, and then, of course, all kinds of scenarios. We'll have multiplayer scenarios that get you a 4-player free-for-all. We'll have a co-op scenario, at least one, and just some really fun stuff planned throughout the year in terms of organized play, fun miniatures that you'll find
Sure.
in stores, limited edition foil cards, promo cards that let you kind of punch up some of the cards that come with the core set.
So it sounds like if I'm getting involved in Onslaught, there'll be plenty of content for me
Oh,
to
yeah.
sort of just
Yeah.
dive into.
Yeah, there's so much coming. We're so excited for this game, and we think it's so much fun. Whether you're a TTRPG player, whether you're a war gamer, a board gamer, someone who's just loves the D&D ambiance and feel, and wants to just get some cool characters on the board and roll dice and see what happens. And hopefully you won't find yourself on the wrong end of a 0-1 victory point score, as I have found myself here.
It sounds like it really has something to offer for everybody.
It does.
That's
it
great.
does. So I know we're running really low on time, but just want to say thank you to everyone for
Yeah.
tuning in. And
Thanks for watching. Thanks for
Yeah.
checking out Onslaught with us. I want to thank the folks here at GaryCon that
Oh, yeah.
gave us this time to share this game with you. I want to thank our fellows behind the screen for setting everything
Yes.
up with our cameras and our audio and the stream. And thank you, Will,
Oh,
for
and thank you, Joe.
showing me
Yeah,
so
yeah.
much. Yeah.
So, we're so excited to be here. We've got the booth. We're going to be playing games, but local game stores will have events. I know there's some fun stuff going on this weekend that's actually tied to what we're here for with the Onslaught OMG weekend, Onslaught Miniatures Game Weekend. So,
And I can buy Onslaught at my local game store, on the WizKids website.
You can buy online at dndmini.com.
Okay.
All your favorite retailers. So
Wonderful.
Thanks again for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.
We'll see you around. Thank you.